The Great Depression, beginning in 1929, was the worst economic crisis in U.S. history. Stock markets crashed, banks failed, and unemployment soared to nearly 25%. Bread lines stretched for blocks, families lost their homes, and despair filled the streets. Americans faced not just economic collapse, but a crisis of confidence in their government. It was in this moment of national hardship that Franklin D. Roosevelt rose to power, ready to redefine the presidency and restore hope to a broken nation. Franklin D. Roosevelt responded to the Great Depression with bold action and unprecedented government intervention. Through his New Deal programs, FDR expanded the federal government's role in the economy, creating jobs, regulating banks, and establishing safety nets like Social Security. Agencies like the CCC, WPA, and TVA put millions back to work and restored public confidence. But FDR's leadership was tested again during World War II. He transitioned the country from isolationism to becoming the arsenal of democracy, supplying allies with weapons through the Lend-Lease Act even before entering the war. After Pearl Harbor, he mobilized the entire nation, transforming industries for wartime production and uniting Americans through powerful fireside chats and leadership. His steady hand and bold vision helped guide the U.S. through its deepest crises and forever changed the expectations of what a president could and should do. FDR's policies didn't just combat crisis, they redefined the relationship between Americans and their government. For the first time, citizens looked to Washington for economic security, infrastructure, jobs, and justice. His programs expanded federal power, created lasting institutions, and laid the groundwork for the welfare state. Social expectations shifted. Government was no longer distant, but an active force in everyday life. So how did this bold, hands-on leadership style and these sweeping policies reshape the role and expectations of the modern American presidency? FDR set a new standard for presidential leadership: active, visible, and deeply involved in both domestic and international affairs. Future presidents would follow his example, expanding executive power and embracing the idea that the president should be a central figure in shaping national policy. Harry S. Truman, FDR's vice president and successor, inherited not just a war, but Roosevelt's expanded vision of the presidency. Truman continued New Deal-style programs with his Fair Deal and made bold decisions, like desegregating the military and using atomic weapons, moves that reflected FDR's precedent of decisive executive action. Truman embraced a global leadership role for the U.S., continuing FDR's legacy on the world stage. Though Republican, Dwight D. Eisenhower upheld many of FDR's core ideas. He expanded Social Security, invested in massive infrastructure through the interstate highway system, and accepted a permanent role for the federal government in managing the economy. Eisenhower's moderate leadership style reflected FDR's legacy, balancing strong executive action with public reassurance during the Cold War. John F. Kennedy admired FDR's charisma, communication skills, and vision of activist government. Like Roosevelt, JFK used media, especially television, to connect with Americans and inspire hope. His New Frontier echoed the New Deal spirit, calling for federal action in civil rights, poverty, and space exploration. FDR's legacy shaped JFK's belief that government could be a powerful force for progress. Lyndon B. Johnson saw himself as carrying forward FDR's mission. His Great Society aimed to finish what the New Deal started, ending poverty, expanding civil rights, and increasing access to healthcare and education. Programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and the Civil Rights Act reflected FDR's vision of an active federal government working to ensure equality and opportunity for all Americans. Though a conservative Republican, Richard Nixon maintained many of FDR's expanded government roles. He created federal agencies like the EPA and OSHA, showing that even skeptics of big government operated within the framework FDR built. Nixon also embraced the idea of a powerful presidency, especially in foreign policy, mirroring FDR's assertive, centralized executive leadership style. Gerald Ford, though aiming to restore trust after Watergate, still governed within the structure FDR had shaped. He accepted the permanence of New Deal and Great Society programs like Social Security and Medicare, even as he emphasized limited government. Ford's presidency reflected the enduring expectation set by FDR that the president must respond directly to national crises and reassure the public. Jimmy Carter embraced FDR's ideal of a morally driven presidency, focused on serving the public good. Like Roosevelt, he used direct communication such as fireside-style addresses to connect with Americans during times of economic hardship. While Carter struggled with inflation and energy crises, he carried forward FDR's belief that the federal government had a duty to lead through compassion, reform, and responsibility. Though a conservative icon, Ronald Reagan admired Franklin D. Roosevelt's leadership style and communication skills. Reagan adopted FDR's use of direct, optimistic messaging like the fireside chats to connect with Americans, famously using television to speak directly to the public. Reagan also embraced FDR's idea of the presidency as a source of national inspiration and strong executive leadership, reshaping conservatism with a confident, activist presidential image. Franklin D. Roosevelt's expansion of presidential power influenced George H.W. Bush's leadership, particularly in foreign policy. Like FDR, Bush acted decisively on the global stage, leading a coalition in the Gulf War, much like Roosevelt did in World War II. However, Bush faced challenges with domestic policy, struggling to match FDR's New Deal legacy. This contrast highlights how FDR's presidency set enduring expectations for strong executive leadership, both internationally and at home. Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal legacy shaped Bill Clinton's approach to the presidency, particularly in balancing government intervention with economic growth. Clinton, like FDR, focused on middle-class prosperity, expanding healthcare access and welfare reform, though with a more centrist approach. FDR's use of media to connect with Americans also influenced Clinton's communicative style, leveraging television and emerging 24-hour news to maintain public support. This reflects how FDR's leadership redefined the modern presidency as both policymaker and communicator-in-chief. Franklin D. Roosevelt's model of bold executive leadership during crisis shaped George W. Bush's response to 9/11. Much like FDR's decisive actions after Pearl Harbor, Bush expanded presidential power through the War on Terror, echoing FDR's wartime authority. However, Bush's domestic policies, like tax cuts and deregulation, contrasted with FDR's New Deal liberalism. Still, FDR's legacy is evident in how Bush redefined the modern presidency as one expected to provide stability and command during national emergencies. Franklin D. Roosevelt's vision of an active, compassionate federal government deeply influenced Barack Obama's presidency. Facing the Great Recession, Obama channeled FDR's New Deal spirit with stimulus packages and financial reforms, while his Affordable Care Act mirrored FDR's unfinished quest for universal health care. Like FDR, Obama used fireside chats reimagined through social media to rally public support during crises. Yet, partisan resistance constrained his ambitions, underscoring how FDR's legacy both inspired and set towering expectations for modern presidents as agents of transformative change. Donald Trump's presidency marked a sharp departure from Franklin D. Roosevelt's legacy, rejecting FDR's vision of an expansive federal government in favor of deregulation, tax cuts, and a populist appeal to America First. Where FDR championed international alliances and New Deal-style safety nets, Trump prioritized nationalist policies, trade wars, and skepticism of institutions like the EPA and Social Security. Yet, Trump's use of direct communication bypassing media, much like FDR's fireside chats, showed how even presidents resisting FDR's policies still operate within the modern expectations of strong, media-savvy executive leadership he established. Joe Biden's presidency consciously revived Franklin D. Roosevelt's legacy, framing his ambitious agenda as a 21st-century New Deal. Like FDR, Biden used expansive federal power to address crises, combating the COVID-19 pandemic with relief packages akin to FDR's WPA, while his infrastructure and climate investments mirrored FDR's transformative programs. Even his rhetoric echoed FDR's faith in government as a force for good. But where FDR reshaped American politics for generations, Biden faces polarized obstacles, proving how FDR's shadow still looms, but also how his scale of change remains unmatched in modern times. Franklin D. Roosevelt's leadership fundamentally redefined the American presidency, creating enduring expectations that every successor has had to confront, whether embracing or resisting them. His New Deal established the precedent that presidents must actively address economic crises, while his wartime leadership cemented the commander-in-chief's role in global affairs. Later presidents, from Biden's bold reforms to Trump's rejection of big government, all operate in the shadow of FDR's legacy, judged by their ability to unite, communicate, and deliver results during upheaval. Looking ahead, future presidents will inherit this dual mandate, to be both pragmatic problem solvers and inspirational leaders. The positives: FDR's model offers a roadmap for tackling existential challenges like inequality or climate change. The negatives: polarization and gridlock now limit the kind of sweeping change FDR achieved, risking public disillusionment. Yet one truth remains: the modern presidency is, in many ways, FDR's creation, and its future will hinge on balancing his boldness with today's fractured political reality.